Sport Clips Haircuts Help a Hero program funds scholarships for U.S. veterans who are pursuing a college degree or vocational certification. Visit your nearest Sport Clips to learn more and donate now through November 11th.
This is the Best of Mike and Mike podcast. Subscribe now by going to the Listen tab in the ESPN app.
The Best of Mike and Mike.
Here we are. We are back and better than ever. Mike and Mike, presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. It is 100 degrees in L.A. for the start of the World Series tonight. Of course, we'll have every pitch of every game right here on ESPN radios. But the Dodgers and the Astros are not the only ones bringing the heat on this Tuesday morning. How about Carson Wentz? How about Fly, Eagles, Fly? Mike Golic, your old team, as voiced by John Gruden last night, is right now the best team in the National Football League.
They are the best team in the NFL. They're a complete team in the NFL, 6-1, 2.5-game lead over Washington. They swept the season series. Now, Carson Wentz, you want to talk about the definition of first-year to second-year improvement. He is there right now, leading the league in touchdowns with 17. His escapability is just fantastic, getting out of trouble. The defense plays well. I do worry about the secondary a little bit. The running game, they have a lot of attempts, but they're not a great yardage rushing team at times, but they do get the attempts. Actually, Carson Wentz led the team in rushing last night. But they got it all going on. Bad, and we'll talk about it, bad injury with Jason Peters. They're all everything left tackle. It looks like he's going to be done for the season. That certainly is going to hurt them. But they're playing very well right now. They are. They're the best team in the NFL, and the reason they're the most complete team right now in the NFL, and it shows.
Right. If you're going to look for negatives, and there's no reason to be looking for them, but there are two. One of them is the goal is not to be the best team in the NFL after 7 weeks.
Exactly right.
We see that sort of come and go all the time. And the other is the team that winds up standing at the end is going to be the one that winds up standing at the end. So you lose a critical piece. Yep. That's obviously significant. But if you just watch them play and you watch that quarterback play, you say to yourself, my goodness, how good they are. And I'm sorry to do it. I'm sorry to the people in Cleveland to do it. But every time I watch him play, the only thought I have is, there's a team that traded out of the spot of drafting him.
Could have had him. Absolutely right. The Cleveland Browns traded out and passed on Carson Wentz. Could have had that guy. Again, it's a crapshoot. We know that with quarterbacks in the first round, the odds of them hitting or not hitting. So it all goes on grade, all goes on what you feel. And in Cleveland, they had the kind of the new way of doing things, of loading up on draft picks, and that's the way they wanted to go. And, boy, they may be eating that one for a little while.
Absolutely. And now the flip side of that is so much of it also has to do with the situation that a player finds himself in.
Yes,
exactly. If you were Carson Wentz, you couldn't have found yourself in a better situation with a quarterback-friendly system and a quarterback-friendly head coach, and you listen to the praise, the unanimous praise at this point around the league for Doug Peterson and the job they've done bringing Wentz along. A lot of those things go hand in hand. Who knows what he'd be now if he'd been drafted in Cleveland.
I think, let's just say at this point, if he were in Cleveland, they probably still wouldn't be 6-1. I would feel pretty comfortable in saying that. But you do have to give a lot of credit to Doug Peterson. John Gruden broke down a great play at the goal line that Carson Wentz used a ton in college. And when he got here to the Philadelphia Eagles, he talked with Doug Peterson about, hey, this is a great play. I'd like to incorporate this. And it's about coaches understanding what their players can do and incorporating their talents. We see it in Tennessee with Mariota. You see it in other places as well, where you use the quarterback's talent from college in plays they're comfortable with, and you incorporate it into their game plan, and you can get some good results.
There are also some of the intangibles. Many of them you can't see. You can't measure what a guy's going to be like when he's gotten hit 12 times and he's got to get up there and still throw a big pass on third down. Maybe you can't tell that from meetings and interviews. But what you can tell, and the thing I think you can tell anyway, and the thing that everyone says about him is the extraordinary professionalism. I mean, the first guy in, last guy out, all that kind of stuff. And right now, Carson Wentz, who has played all of 23 games in the National Football League, if you were to stop the league right now and say, who's the MVP, would it be him?
I think right now I have two awards that are done. He's the MVP, and Josh Adams from Notre Dame is the Heisman winner. I think we have those two awards pretty much locked up, right?
All of a sudden, Golic cares about the Heisman.
It's the greatest award of all time.
All you've done is criticize the Heisman. Ever since the day Tim Brown walked off the podium with one is the last time you cared about it.
But if you're going to give it out, okay? I know they're listen, every December they give this thing out every year, so if you're going to do it, let's give it to the right guy.
So maybe we'll give that one to the Notre Dame kid. And is Wentz right now the current favorite for the MVP? There's only one player in Eagles history who was named the MVP by the Associated Press. It was not Mike Golic.
No, it was not.
It was not Reggie White.
No, it was not.
It was not Randall Cunningham.
No, it was
someone who played a lot longer ago than that. Do you know who it was?
I don't.
It was Norm Van Brocklin in 1960.
It's a couple of years ago.
Is the only Eagle ever to be named the league MVP. Right now, I think if he were to stop the league right now, it would be Brady and Wentz. I think.
I agree.
Right?
Yes.
I mean, Brady was carrying a bad defense.
Kareem Hunt is going to get some votes for, even though he's a rookie, for what he's doing, but he's not going to be he's not going to be up with those guys. But it's a name at least you should mention. And we've got a lot more season to go. But I would say those two guys, yes, Brady and Wentz.
And so there you have it after the Monday Nighter. Let's get going here with Off the Top, and we'll start with some basketball. And the Greek Freak just keeps putting up ridiculous numbers for the Milwaukee Bucks. Mike, he is now the betting favorite for league MVP in Las Vegas.
Giannis Antetokounmpo. Wanted to get the name. I tried in there. Second player in NBA history to average at least 35 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 assists over his team's first 4 games of the season. Joining happened a long time ago, gang. Last year, Russell Westbrook did it. So,
and what did Russell Westbrook wind up doing?
Yeah, he ended up being the league MVP. We keep talking about this guy and what he is and when he's going to rise up and be the guy. We know the top players, obviously Westbrook, Harden, who was right there, Durant, LeBron, all guys, that have the hardware like that. And this guy Antetokounmpo his athletic ability is ridiculous for his size and what he's able to do. So he's fun to watch individually. Let's see what he can do with the team as well.
We keep talking about guys who are going to change the league, right? Anthony Davis was going to change the league, and Karl Anthony Towns is going to change the league, and Joel Embiid is going to change the league, and Kristaps Porzingis is going to change the league. This guy's the guy.
Well, and when you can be put in with another name like this, he has 147 points overall this season, passing some guy named Kareem Abdul-Jabbar for most in Bucks history through the team's first 4 games of a season. How much more can you change it? I mean, we see big guys playing away from the basket. Basically, he's a big guy that may be the best, most athletic big guy. I don't know how you change a game anymore with how great athletes these guys are.
The thing is, when we talk about guys like Davis and particularly Towns, we say they're the bigs that almost have some guard skills. This guy's a guard. I mean, if you told him he had to play guard, he could. And at 6'11" or whatever it is that he is, he's ridiculous. He is genuinely the Greek freak. Speaking of which, Ben Simmons is a legit 7 feet tall. He had his first career triple-double last night, and something tells me, Mike, it won't be his last.
Yeah, the only other players in NBA history who had triple-doubles within their first 4 games in the league were the Big O, Oscar Robertson, in his debut for the Cincinnati Royals back in 1960, and Hambone Williams in his 4th game for the San Diego Rockets in 1967. We wanted to see Ben Simmons. We got a couple of guys that just have come into the league. Fultz, who's the number 1 pick this past year, and Simmons, who didn't go to the NCAA tournament. Simmons missed all of last year. If you go to Philly, that's kind of how it works. And he's come out of the gate strong. How about Joel Embiid, what he did? His teammate, in just his 34th NBA game after signing a monster deal, scored 30 points in Philly's win. So you had a triple-double by one and 30 points by another. We've talked about the youth there, and if they can bring it together of how they could rise up in the league, I still think it's going to take a little bit of time, but boy, the future seems pretty bright there.
Off the top.
Meanwhile, the future for Eric Bledsoe is elsewhere, and the circumstances of this thing in Phoenix are crazy. Now, there's a lot of teams out there that would like Eric Bledsoe. He's a good player. He's not going to be on the Suns anymore, and the circumstances of his departure are really remarkable.
They really are. So he's a guy, now let's put it in context a little bit. He's a guy before the season that wanted out. He wanted to be traded before the season started, so you kind of knew that about him. But then he posted a tweet that simply said, "I don't want to be here." And basically,
bear in mind, this is right after they fired their coach after 3 games.
Right. And
I think it's important to put that in context because everyone will immediately look at it and think that's the reason he tweeted it.
Their GM, Ryan McDonough, said that he talked to Bledsoe and after the conversation didn't believe him in saying when Bledsoe said he didn't want to be here when he was referring to being at a hair salon with his girl and he didn't want to be there anymore. That's what he said he meant by, I don't want to be here. McDonough, the GM, didn't believe him. He's not part of the team anymore. They'll look to trade him. Interesting little note here, by the way, is if you look at his timeline, Eric Bledsoe is a very big tweeter with no context. You'll see that in his timeline where you just see prayers or tired today or no context around some of his tweets.
Right. Meaning something like, I don't want to be here.
Isn't out of what he has done, what we've seen in his timeline. Now, that said, I don't believe him, and Ryan McDonough, the GM, doesn't believe him. But wouldn't it be interesting if that were true? And like my son said this morning on a show, First and Last, is it's refreshing if he is lying. It's refreshing that he didn't use the "I got hacked" line, and he came up with something a little different.
Yeah, and if he's telling the truth,
wouldn't that be something?
Then. It doesn't mean that they shouldn't still trade him.
Right. He did want to be traded, talked about wanting to be traded before the season started, so it doesn't seem he's very happy.
We have reports that the Knicks are one of the teams interested
Off the top,
in him.
Top.
Okay, World Series begins tonight. As we mentioned, I got 1 million stats for you, but the most interesting one right off the bat is that it's 100 degrees in Los Angeles.
Yes, it is.
And Dallas Keuchel is going to be pitching with quite a large beard. I can't imagine the amount of perspiration that will be dripping from the Astros starter by the bottom of the first.
Yeah, they're talking about the game time for this being 96 degrees. The warmest World Series game in that span was Game 1 in 2001 World Series, Arizona and the Yankees and Diamondbacks. It was 94 degrees at the start of that game.
That's a dry heat, though. It's Arizona.
Well, it is a dry heat. There is definitely something to that, but it is hot. And 96 degrees is going to be hot. So we'll see. I would rather play in cold weather any day of the week.
But you played football.
But I played football. How about last year, though, between Chicago and Cleveland?
You had some chilly nights.
Don't look like you're going to get that here in the two places you're going to play, in Houston and in L.A. So, and then as far as numbers, this is the first World Series matchup of 100-win teams since 1970. You go back to that one, Orioles and the Reds in 1970. The last time you had 200-win teams.
That surprised me. I've seen that stat, a little bit as we lead up to this. I would have thought it would have happened more recently than that, but it hasn't. And the one thing about the two things I guess you would have to consider with the temperature: one, does that impact the starters? Right. I mean, you got Kershaw and Keuchel. So here's a pitching matchup that you're dying to see. Does it speed up fatigue? Do they get into such a zone that it almost doesn't make any difference? I don't know. We'll see if that causes them to be shorter starts. And the other is, anyone who plays golf knows the hotter it is, the more the ball carries.
That's exactly right.
So do we see the ball carry a little bit in the ballpark tonight?
Yeah, again, and we have a ton of numbers. The seventh inning for Clayton Kershaw in the postseason isn't very good. What's his ERA? 25.
Yeah,
I believe it's.
He's not kidding. It's literally that.
It is literally 25. I'm not even making that up.
Yeah.
And the great note about the Astros, it's their second World Series. In the first one, they were swept by the White Sox in the 2005 World Series, which means they were in the National League.
Yeah,
and now
they're the first team ever to represent both leagues in the World Series.
The top,
and then finally, the Eagles beating Washington last night to improve to a league best 6-1 this year. Let's make that off the top with us, Mike and Mike, presented by Progressive Insurance. Pick from a range of coverage options with the Name Your Price tool to find a price that works for you. The Eagles, who put some space between themselves and the entirety of the NFC East, and bear in mind they now own a season sweep of Washington. So they're not only in front of the Skins, they're very comfortably in front of them. Dallas, let's see what they are with Zeke Elliott. He's in, he's out, he's playing, he's not playing. I don't know how much you read into the fact that they destroyed a very bad San Francisco team this week. So let's forget about whether the Eagles are the best team in the league or not, because A, we don't know, and B, it doesn't really matter. But are they very much in the driver's seat in the NFC East, which is a good first step? They absolutely are. And show me another team that's in the driver's seat in an NFC division. I defy you to. You won't be able to do it.
No, you won't be able to do it. They are in total control of their division. They're playing like as the best team in football right now. And you love the way Carson Wentz is spreading the ball around for the second time this year. 4 touchdown passes to 4 different receivers. I mean, that's beautiful when you can't zero in on the one guy, even though the one guy, if you're going to zero in, is going to be the guy he has a great relationship with, and that's Zach Ertz,
right?
The tight end. Zach Ertz has 5 touchdowns this year. That's tops amongst tight ends. And as we mentioned, Wentz was also the leading rusher with 64 yards. Watching him get out of some of the issues or some of the positions that he was in when you thought the Redskins had 3 sacks on him and could have had a few more. But I know a couple of times they thought the whistle was going to blow. They thought they had him in their grasp, but he got out, and the whistle didn't blow. Play went on, and he made something happen, whether by running or by throwing. He is really resilient from that, and man, he just looks so comfortable and in command in that pocket.
There were a couple of moments in last night's game that I actually thought of you. The touchdown that he throws where he kind of maneuvers himself around in the pocket a bunch of times and then lofts it in the right corner of the end zone. In the NFL, 10 years ago, I don't think that play is a touchdown. And the reason is because 10 years ago, he is getting annihilated on that play. And right now, if you watch a lot of games, and I saw it a couple of times last night, I feel like defenders are so conscious of how they're hitting the quarterback, where they're hitting the quarterback, that sometimes I feel, and look, this is, I think, the way the league wants it. The quarterback is taking advantage of that. He's less afraid. Now, again, the kid is obviously very tough.
Yes, he is.
But he's also not afraid to stand in there because he knows they can't hit him in the head. He knows they can't hit him in the knee. And, there was a time when he would have just gotten so drilled on that play that maybe it would have been a touchdown, but he would not have played the rest of the game.
Defenders are in a tough position, whether it's DBs on where to hit a receiver, defenseless player, as they say, and yes, I'm using air quotes, or hit the quarterback. You're right. We saw more than a few calls on Sunday where I'm just like, are you kidding? It's a tackle of the quarterback and a flag comes out. So, yeah, making defenders a little bit gun shy. Get it? Because A, you don't want to cost your team 15 yards, and B, you don't want to be fined. Because if you hit him in the head, it doesn't matter what the situation is, you're at fault if that were to happen. Bottom line is 17 touchdown passes in the first 7 games. So the most touchdown passes in the first 7 games in a first or second year player in NFL history. The leader all time back in 1999, Kurt Warner with 21, 1984, Dan Marino with 20, 2000, Jeff Garcia with 19. And tied next in 2017 and 1957 are Carson Wentz and Johnny Unitas.
Wow!
With in their first or second year, 17 touchdowns in the first 7 games. So they got it going on right now. They really do. And again, both offensively and defensively, playing extremely well.
Steve Young and Charles Woodson after the game, impressed.
No question. I mean, they're playing. The Redskins didn't fall down. I mean, Kirk Cousins had a good game. I mean, they need some players, but
they were pretty even in a lot of categories.
We just talked about offensive defensively. There's no place the Eagles can't pack their bags and go and beat somebody anywhere.
I think I would have to agree, and it all lies on Carson Wentz's shoulder. You talk about Pennsylvania, before. Man, he is directing and directing this show, man, and he's doing a great job. So, Philadelphia Eagles, they're the team.
He is directing the show, sitting there with 17 touchdowns. Alex Smith has 15 touchdowns. Tom Brady has 15 touchdowns. So they do have it going on right now, but it's also a game of attrition. And you remember last year, Lane Johnson, their right tackle, he was lost for 10 games by suspension. And that it certainly changed for the Eagles because that O-line had been playing well. And it changed when he was out for those games. And last night, so this is the negative side of it. We can talk a lot of glowing positive things, and they had the 49ers coming to town this week. So quite honestly, it should be another win for them. They should keep rolling. But it's not about now. When you're 6-1, you take obviously each game one at a time, but you realize the goals that you're going for, that you're trying to achieve, and where you need to be at the end of the season. And it looks like that their Pro Bowl, All-Pro, All-Everything left tackle Jason Peters won't be a part of it. He got rolled up on one of those plays where he's just pass blocking, and all the trash that happened behind him ends up right into his legs, and they have to immobilize his knee and cart him off the field. Brandon Scherff, the All-Pro, Pro Bowl right guard for the Washington Redskins, same thing happened to him. He was walking around on the sideline, but he didn't come back in, so we have to see about his injury as well. That's the O-lineman. That's what you fear the most, because you have no idea what's coming. You're blocking, and all of a sudden somebody falls into the side of your legs or the back of your legs, and you're done. And that's what it looks like it's going to be for Jason Peters. Understand something. Two of the best left tackles in this game, both have been to 9 Pro Bowls, have been Jason Peters and Joe Thomas. And within a day apart, they're both done for the season. Joe Thomas, after 10,363 plays, tears his triceps. He's done for the year. And here's the difference. I believe, and he was 2003, and I think Peters was 2004 in the draft. So Joe Thomas was the number 3 pick overall in the draft. So out of Wisconsin, the expectations were very high, right?
Of course.
He was a tackle in college. He was a tackle in the pros and never left that spot. Jason Peters, this is how it works sometimes with players. I believe it was 2004 that he was drafted, 9 Pro Bowls. He's 35 years old. He's from Arkansas. He was a tight end at Arkansas. He went undrafted as a tight end at Arkansas. And so I got a $5,000 signing bonus and became a left tackle and became one of the great left tackles through his era without question. So 2 guys, the best at their position for a number of years, came into the league a year apart, came at it differently, but the end result the same is they're some of the best in the league.
And unfortunately now, as you mentioned, we know that Thomas is done for the year, and we haven't gotten a full status report on Peters, but you could see.
You could see, and you probably have Lane Johnson now flip over to the left side, but now you're shuffling your line a little bit, and we'll see where it goes, and we'll check out their depth.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Back and better than ever, presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance line in this hour, they'll include Rob Manfred, Commissioner Major League Baseball. World Series starts tonight. Tomorrow at this time, we'll have John Gruden and Kirk Herbstreit back-to-back. Gruden and Herbie every Wednesday in this hour on Mike and Mike.
I got a bone to pick with Herbie.
Well, listen, you made that very clear yesterday. Have you cleared the air with Herbie?
No, I didn't clear the air with him. Absolutely not. Again, the reason is last week I thought College Game Day, the great College Game Day show, would go to Notre Dame, USC. They went to Penn State, Michigan. Okay, understandable. Cool, understand. Neither one was a great game. So afterward, Notre Dame wins, Penn State wins. Penn State's going to Ohio State, who was on a bye. Notre Dame is going to play North Carolina State, another ranked team, another big game. So I thought game day, maybe go to Notre Dame. Maybe I could be the celebrity picker. I never got to do that. No, they're going to Columbus. They've already been to Columbus. They're going back to Columbus to do a game with Ohio State and Penn State, who they just did this past week. All because Herbie, Mr. Ohio State alum, wants it in Columbus. Or at least that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So Herbie cost me a chance to be a celebrity picker by having game day at Notre Dame. Not that they would have asked me to be the celebrity picker, but at least I could have dreamt that.
Well, they might have asked you to
They
be
might
the
have,
celebrity
but now
picker.
you know what they're not going to do? They're not going to have me be the celebrity picker in Columbus.
I will say this.
Yeah.
Ohio State, Penn State is the better game.
No, it's not.
It's the bigger game.
No, it's not.
It is sort of almost.
I know what it is.
It's like an elimination game in the Big Ten, right? If Penn State vaults this hurdle, then they're looking at. I don't want to look past anyone, but fairly smooth sailing on into a potential conference championship matchup with Wisconsin. If Ohio State wins, then they've made up all of their previous sins, and that Michigan game will probably be for themselves a chance to go on and play Wisconsin. And if they win, they're probably playing for the national title, or the college football playoff. So this feels like a CFP play.
Can I ask you something?
Sure.
If either team loses, if Ohio State loses, they're out.
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah. If Ohio State loses, they're out.
If Penn State loses, there's still a chance.
If Penn State loses, there's a chance, but they're in big trouble.
Okay, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
If Notre Dame loses, are they out?
Yes.
North Carolina State has one loss. If they lose, are they out?
Yeah.
Okay. There you go. Enough said.
Fair enough. So Golic is making the argument that was the bigger game.
Thanks, Herbie.
There. The game, I don't know why you're making this a Herbie thing.
You're
come on. Create a rift now with
behind
Herbie?
The scenes, Mr. Ohio State alum, Mr. Ohio State quarterback.
We don't have enough problems now. We need to have a fight with Herbie here.
Wait till tomorrow.
All right. According to FPI, the winner of Penn State Ohio State has a 97% chance to win that half of the Big Ten, and thus go on and play most likely Wisconsin. Overwhelmingly likely Wisconsin for the Big Ten title. And the winner of that game, I don't want to say is a lock to be in the Final Four, but it's pretty close.
Yeah.
Pretty close. So this does feel a little bit like a playoff game.
Here's what I don't have is a 97% chance to be the celebrity picker with College Game Day at Ohio State.
You don't even have a 3% chance.
No, I don't.
So, which was left over on the other side.
You understand why I'm a little upset.
The last time it was at Notre Dame, who was the celebrity picker? Do you remember?
No.
Were you there? We were there.
We
went there.
We were there.
It was the year they went to the championship game.
Here's the thing. I think
it was the Stanford game. I want to say
one of the last contract we did. I think I had put in there, if game day is ever at a Notre Dame game, we have to go.
There. Yeah,
I was praying for that too. I thought maybe
we went.
Yeah,
but who was the celebrity picker?
I don't remember. When I'm not the celebrity picker, I don't care who it is.
But was it? I mean, who would be Regis?
You know who was in town? I don't know.
Regis Philbin, Joe Montana. We all know the football players.
Yeah.
Who are the other really famous alums from Notre Dame who are not football players?
Condoleezza Rice. She's
okay. Big one.
Pretty big one.
That's a big one.
Mm-hmm.
Vince Vaughn. They had Vince Vaughn. Vince Vaughn was the celebrity picker. Did he go to Notre Dame? I know he was in Rudy.
No, he was in Rudy, and that's all that matters.
I don't know if he was actually.
Hey, are you laughing? What are you laughing at?
I'm not laughing at anything, but I mean, you would think you could
were
get
laughing.
someone.
You were just laughing. Vince Vaughn was in the movie Rudy.
Did he go to Notre Dame?
No, he didn't.
So you've got you have Condoleezza Rice, Regis Philbin, and a host of other people. But Vince Vaughn, who was in a fictitious account of a player.
And you know what?
Movie.
All those other people you named, when they're there, the players, Vince Vaughn was on the sideline. It's all some of those guys talked about because he was there when Mike and Jake were.
I get that. I love Vince Vaughn. Don't get me wrong. I'm a huge Vince Vaughn fan. I myself would rather hang out with Vince Vaughn than Regis or Condoleezza Rice, with no disrespect meant to either of them. But that said, you'd think you get someone who went to Notre Dame.
So does every single celebrity picker, did they go to that school? No.
Probably not.
No. So all of a sudden you got to pick on Notre Dame.
It just felt a little.
Herbie, now both of you dumping on Notre Dame. Really
nice.
nice.
Askew. All right, let's move on from this. Let me play a Louis Riddick on Carson Wentz, and then we'll get back to where we were a moment ago. The Eagles with a terrific win last night. Wentz right now playing as well as any quarterback in the NFL. And I did throw the question out there, which is going to wind up being the better top-of-the-draft quarterbacks? Jameis and Mariota 3 years ago, Wentz and Goff 2 years ago. It's a pretty interesting little question.
Boy, that is a good question, yeah.
So I'd love to hear your take on that. And while you're thinking about it, I will play you Louis Riddick, who watched Carson Wentz last night and was impressed.
What he shows you is that he has such tremendous command of what's going on the football field. He's an extension of the coaching staff. You see him navigate the pocket here to be able to step up and then still see out of the corner of his eye, still see a receiver open in the corner of the end zone here and put it perfectly on the money as the running back converts the route and takes it up the field.
While he's getting hit.
Look, that's next level stuff. That's something you just don't see from a second-year player usually. That's why Carson Wentz is just special. This is the part that's the most impressive. He's just an extension of the coaching staff, and he is manipulating the offense in accordance with what he is seeing defensively and just taking it to the opposition here and just throwing absolute lasers for touchdowns.
You know, listen, I obviously think it's too early to answer your question, but it's a good question that we can keep charts on, obviously, as the years go on. You know, Jameis Winston, he threw a lot of interceptions his first year with 15. He threw a lot of interceptions last year with 18. Has 4 this year with 10 touchdowns. Did throw 28 touchdowns, though, last year. Marcus Mariota, he doesn't know how to throw an interception in the red zone. He's been unbelievable throwing the ball there.
Look, maybe the good news is they're all good.
Yeah,
and that bodes very well for the future of the National Football League because despite your protest, what everybody wants in football is good quarterback play. That said, the whole art of the draft is deciding one over the other. So if you were right now just drafting one quarterback class versus the other, just on potential, on their future, based exclusively on everything we've seen so far, I think I would go right now.
It's tough. And listen, it's tough. I mean, last year, Mariota, 26 touchdowns, just 9 interceptions. I mean, and doesn't throw them in the red zone. Jameis, is going to throw some touchdowns, throw some good footballs. Man, that's a tough one.
I was about to say I would go with Jameis and Mariota, but I'm kind of pausing. I'm hesitating a little bit because the things we're seeing from Goff are really eye-opening. I mean,
you know what they are? They're unexpected.
Right.
Coming off of last year, so maybe you thought he would start to play better, but he's gone beyond what we thought we might get out of him after seeing last year or what happened last year. So jury's out. Listen, this isn't a question to answer now because
it is because it's Too Far Tuesday. There's nothing better than answering questions
good point. That's good
too
point.
far on
good
a Tuesday.
Point.
So I think right now I will stick with, if I had to pick one class versus the other, I would take the first one. I would take Winston and Mariota. But the other, the newer guys are coming on
just
strong.
To be different, I'll go with this class. of Wentz and Goff.
Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. Progressive celebrating 5 years and more than 500 cars donated to vets. To learn more, visit keystoprogress.com. Okay, we told you 2 guys said they were sorry. Not 100% sure in my case that either one of them had to. I was kind of kidding about T.Y. Hilton because I understood why he needed to say what he said, even though what he said was obviously right about how incredibly bad Indy's offensive line was on Sunday. The other one was from DeShone Kizer. Now, this is one where I deferred to you. Mm-hmm. You played in the league. You would have a much better understanding. This is where sometimes a lot of people who sit in my chair, which is to say those of us who didn't play these sports but cover them now, we get offended by well, you never played so you don't know stuff. There's no reason to be offended by this. This is stuff you would know that I wouldn't. Right. Will the other players in that locker room look askew at DeShone Kizer for being out on a Friday night?
No.
That's the kind of thing I don't know. And you said no, they won't.
No, they won't.
That to me is the only thing that matters. Doesn't make any difference what the fans think. Doesn't make any difference. Well, I guess it does matter what the coaches think.
Oh, yeah, it does.
But what matters is, will it actually have an impact on his ability to play in the game? And he said that he was in the facility all day Friday and was there when he was expected to be Saturday. So and it wasn't until fairly late in the day Saturday they were expected to be there. So to be out at a bar past midnight on a Friday night is no harm, no foul.
No, it's exactly right. Players go out. Again, I said the big night a lot of players go out is Thursday night. We would we would go out a little bit right after practice, hang out, have a few drinks, and then sometimes then guys would go from there. Other guys, some would go home, some would go out, but guys would go out Friday night as well, all depending on your circumstance, when you have to be in Saturday, what you're doing. And there was video of him. He was there. I don't even think he had a drink in his hand. Whether he was drinking or not, I'm not going to sit there.
But nothing terrible happened.
No, it wasn't a video like, oh my God, look at that. He was sitting there with a hat on in a bar, at like 1:30 in the morning. So, no, the teammates aren't going to look, askew at that, not at all. But as I said, it's from the optic side of it. It's something that he's going to have to decide. Okay, this is a bad team. I've been benched twice now. It's happened before the second benching, but I've now been benched twice. I've been benched once before this. Things haven't been going well. Do I want to be in a position where there's a camera phone everywhere going to take pictures of me? Do I, even though I have every right to be out at this time, do I want to put myself and my team through that?
So here's what Kizer said, and this is from Mary Kay Cabot of the Cleveland Plain Dealer. Quote, I've learned that this is a distraction. We're sitting here and talking about this, and teammates are coming up to me and asking me about this. There's so many cameras around here, it's going to be made a pretty big deal. And with that, it's on me to make sure from here on out I'm not a distraction and I'm an asset to the team and not a guy who's pulling away from the ultimate goal. Hugh Jackson said it wouldn't ultimately determine whether he'll start this week in London against the Vikings and that the decision will come on Wednesday. Kizer has already been benched 3 times this year. Here's what I'll say. Kizer is playing terribly.
Yes, he is.
He's on a terrible team.
Yes, he is.
And I don't know what their plan is. I don't know what they were thinking. Why they didn't keep a veteran quarterback is mystifying to me. I mean, some things are second guesses, and some things everyone should have seen coming. You have a quarterback room of 3 guys whose combined age isn't 70 years old.
Yeah.
So if you're going to give the ball to Kizer and say, okay, let's give this kid 1 year to see if he's going to be our quarterback, and if not, there's a bunch of guys who might take this year, why wouldn't you have one of the seemingly endless array of 30-something-year-old quarterbacks who hang around just to mentor young kids?
You had one in Josh McCown.
You had one in McCown. Now, McCown wanted to go somewhere that he could play. There was a story, actually, the guys on the broadcast this week said that McCown was offered a coaching job, a quarterback coaching job with the Browns to stick around and play that role for Kizer this year, but he wanted to continue playing, and so he went to the Jets, where he's actually playing well. But, I mean, a guy like Mark Sanchez, who they're keeping in Chicago only to tutor Mitchell Trubisky because he's been there and done that and been through the ropes and knows how you prepare and how you study and all the things that a guy who's been a quarterback in the league for years knows and others don't. So the fact that they didn't keep that guy, whoever that guy is, that's a mistake that everyone should have seen coming.
I agree. You have 3 quarterbacks there who all need to learn, whether it's playing or whether it's in practice from a veteran or any situation like that, and they have none there. I completely agree with you on that. But what this does for Kizer, as I said, the optics of it look bad.
Did you think he needed to apologize again? That's another one where sometimes you say what you feel like you've been pressured into saying.
You're reading. He didn't really apologize. He kind of said, I don't want to be the story. I don't want to be the distraction. I know I can't do that to the team. So it was kind of a de facto apology, not like T.Y. Hilton where he said, I went and found these guys and told them I'm sorry. I think this was just a rookie who realized, every move you make can be noted and can be videoed and can be out there. And while it's your right to go out, he probably has to be a little more, not probably, has to be a little more careful, especially when you're not on a good team. Because those that sit there and say should be studying his playbook or watching, just stop. I mean, to think that anybody works their job 24/7 is a ridiculous notion. You put in your time and you put in your extra time, and then the guys go out. He's not the first nor the last guy that's going to be out late on a Friday night. But when you're a bad team and you're performing bad, that's what's going to happen. You're going to be asked a question, why are you out that late? Do you think it had something to do with your performance? What does that say about your commitment to your teammates? You're going to get asked all those questions that I said about that would happen with T.Y. Hilton and the offensive line once that stuff goes public. And that's where the word distraction comes into play when you're answering things like that. When you need to really, obviously, try to improve as a football team, you got to answer that garbage.
Oh, by the way, Joe Thomas tweeted 11 minutes ago a picture of himself obviously prepped for surgery. You can see that he's in a hospital room and he's got a hair thing on.
Right.
And you can see he's about to get surgery, and he just tweeted, "Let's do this," with a big smile on his face. That guy, A, has the best attitude of any person I've ever met.
Does he have a great personality?
He may be the toughest person in the world.
Well, he's got
If I was about to undergo shoulder, whatever it is, surgery.
This is tricep
surgery,
yeah.
I mean, I would be. I think I'd be like cowering in the corner. What's the anesthetic going to be like? He's like, "Hey, let's do this. Come on, I'm having surgery." He looks like he's about to go on a ride at Disney World. He's about to have surgery.
It's going to be interesting too. If he wants to come back, play. You're talking about him who came in a year before, Jason Peters, who's 35. Got hurt last night in Philadelphia. Major surgery for Joe. That's going to keep him out the rest of the year. We haven't heard yet the injury of Jason Peters, but I'm just going to tell you it didn't look good, and I would not expect him back this season. And what he's going to have to go through for guys that are both 9-time Pro Bowlers, guys who have been great for this league, and what their future holds.
By the way, Will Kane, who I'm guessing is listening because he just tweeted, but didn't at us, tweeted 2016 NFL draft quarterback class greater than, and he put 5 greater than signs, 2015 NFL draft quarterback class, and it's not close. So he's making the argument for Goff and Wentz over Jameis and Mariota. I could have added us on that.
Yeah, you could have added us. Thanks, Will. Appreciate it. You're only, on the show all the time. Never mind, though. I don't mind that take, but not even close. I wouldn't say either way. If you want to choose Mariota and Winston over these two younger guys, I would say that's fine, but I wouldn't use not even close in any case on either side of this one. I do think it's pretty close.
Well, I guess it's occurring to me now that Will Kane is a Cowboys fan. Dak Prescott is in that class. Dak Prescott was drafted in 2016 also. So if you're going to include him, then obviously
we're not including him.
But that's
we're not
not what we're talking about.
No, it's not what we're talking about.
So let's. I mean, if you want, we didn't even really set it up as a question, but if you're going to make it a question, who's got the bigger upside, Jameis and Mariota or Goff and
Wentz? 1 and 2 versus 1 and 2 is where we're looking.
If you're going to throw Dak in, obviously it's going to skew the whole thing in one direction. We're Mike and Mike. We're brought to you by Upside. Now save big on travel. Get a big gift card with every trip you buy. You'll love Upside.com. That's Upside.com. This Eric Bledsoe business. Well, I found this story hilarious to watch unfold yesterday. But speaking of it unfolding, I actually think that he may have an argument. Mm-hmm. So here's the way this thing goes. The Suns get off to another bad start. They're in their 9th different stage of rebuilding. And they fired their coach after 3 games. And right around the time that they fired their coach, Eric Bledsoe just tweets, "I don't want to be here." Now, immediately everyone assumes he's saying, "I don't want to be in Phoenix anymore." Right. He's making a statement.
And before the season started, he said he wanted out of there, wanted to trade. So it's not like, people were shocked if they thought he was associating that with the team.
So this is brought up to Ryan McDonough, the general manager of the Suns, who says he talked to Bledsoe about it, and he does not believe Bledsoe's story. Bledsoe says that the reason that he tweeted that is because he was in a hair salon with, to quote Brian McDonough, his girl, and Bledsoe just was tweeting, "I don't want to be here." And we have evidence that suggests that might actually be a viable story. Let me play you the Brian McDonough sound first.
You guys saw his tweet last night. I gave him a call last night and asked him about that tweet and, just to clarify what he meant by it. and he said he was at a hair salon. It wasn't about the Suns or anything related to the Suns. He said he was at a hair salon with this girl, and he didn't want to be there anymore. So I don't believe that to be true. And, so we thought about it, talked about it with Robert and my staff and Coach Triano and his staff, and decided it's what's best for the organization. So he won't be with us, going forward.
Okay. So he doesn't believe it to be true.
Right.
However, Mike Golic has done a little investigative journalism, otherwise known as looking at someone's timeline.
That's exactly right.
And look what he's found.
Eric Bledsoe's timeline. Now, again, you see the tweet, I don't want to be here. Really no context of it. It didn't, hashtag Suns, Phoenix Suns, anything like that. Mm-hmm. Just said, I don't want to be here. Suns thought it was about them, and he said, I was at the hair salon, didn't want to be here. So I have 7 tweets from Eric Bledsoe from January 20. These aren't all his tweets, but I picked these out from between January 29th and September 30th. These are, with no context at all, these are the 7 different tweets. Patience. I need it with prayer hands. This one hurt. Only going to make me stronger. Wow. Thank God. I'm so tired. No context, no about anything, no hashtag, anything. So you didn't really know. This is kind of what he does. As some of our guys said, he's kind of a boring tweeter. But there's no context to those. So could he have been telling the truth?
Do you believe that he was actually in a hair salon? We all have been there.
Listen, I've been
sitting there. You're
now,
reading the magazine.
I'm not going to lie. When we're out in Arizona, my wife gets her hair done. Our guy Ricky does it. He's a great guy. Love him. He was.
I met him at your wedding.
At the wedding,
Jake's wedding.
They have cookies at that salon.
So you enjoy it.
So I sit there and I enjoy it. I enjoy the company of Ricky. And
I love where I am right now.
Yeah,
with no context whatsoever. Then you might say, well, everyone would say, oh, Golic wants to move to Arizona.
Yeah,
no.
exactly.
He's happy sitting in the salon eating the cookies while Ricky is doing.
Is there
Chris's hair?
Is there any chance you believe him?
Yes, I do.
You believe him?
I believe him.
There are so many. All those tweets.
I believe
no context.
I actually do. Call me ridiculous. I believe him.
Again, he did say before the season he wanted out. This was right before the coach got fired.
And yet, this is future Nick Eric Bledsoe tweeting, I don't want to be here. And listen, I've sat there. When Stacey's in there, more often with Stacey, it's shopping. She's trying on clothes, and I am sitting, and, you're in that little chair. There's never a really comfortable place to sit. You're reading a magazine like it's an old magazine. The corner has been torn out because someone left it there and took their little subscription address off of it.
Yeah.
It's not a great experience. I don't want to be there either when it's happening.
I could see it happening, but now Bledsoe, so he's not part of the Suns. He's not traded. So he gets to sit around and make money, which is the dream of all of us.
And
do
yet,
nothing and make money.
What winds up happening is they've just made it harder for themselves to trade because everyone knows they have to.
Yep.
Well done, guys.
Hey, everyone. Mike Golic here. Support for the Mike and Mike podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. Rocket Mortgage is simple, allowing you to fully understand all the details and be confident you're getting the right mortgage for you. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Mikes. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLS, consumeraccess.org number 3030.
He is on his way out west where the Dodgers and Astros will play Game 1 of the World Series tonight. It's expected to be close to 100 degrees in L.A. and trying to keep cool will be the Commissioner of Major League Baseball, Rob Manfred, who joins us early this morning on Mike and Mike. Hello, Commissioner.
Good morning, guys. How are you?
Doing well.
Well, we're fine, but we're worried about you here. Obviously, heat is a consideration. Forget about the players. They'll be fine, but it's you that I'm concerned about sitting there in the luxury box. Give us a sense of the, you got to be hydrating right now. Give us a sense of all the precautions and the preparation that you're doing for the steamy temperatures in Los Angeles tonight.
You don't need to spend a lot of time worrying about my well-being. I'll be fine. It is amazing, though, the idea that we're going to play a World Series game at these temperatures, sort of unprecedented, but it will be interesting tonight.
Please tell me, though, I know you commissioners love to be in your coat and ties and look nice, and you really do, but there are really nice polos out there that you could get for this type of heat. Is there any thought process to that tonight?
I think you will see me in a suit and tie tonight. It is the World Series, and there are certain things that just go along with the job.
All right.
Bring a change of clothes, though. You're gonna need that. You probably need like 2 or 3 different shirts during the course of the game.
That's exactly right. Certainly some serious notes about this game, not just the play, but one of the cities involved in Houston and some players from Puerto Rico as well. We know the devastation that has gone on in both areas. So what does baseball have planned as far as those situations are concerned?
Well, we've been very active with respect to hurricane relief in both locations. In Houston, Jim Crane and the Astros donated $4 million. They had specific on-the-ground programs to put together backpacks for kids to go back to school. Just a phenomenal effort in the community. Major League Baseball gave $1 million in Houston, another $1 million in Puerto Rico. In addition, baseball and a number of individual clubs have arranged planes and brought pallets of food and supplies into Puerto Rico. Carlos Beltran set up a foundation with $1 million of his own money, tremendous generosity. And throughout the postseason, T-Mobile has been running a promotion where they're donating $10,000 for each home run hit in the hope that they'll get to $1 million for hurricane relief.
So that's the backdrop here, and obviously great work being done by a lot of different people as the games get underway tonight. The Commissioner, Rob Manfred, is with us. I'm looking at numbers everywhere I look. The arrows are pointing in the direction you want them to be. TV ratings in this postseason are up 13% from this time a year ago. You had the 4 biggest markets in America as your Final Four this year, and you get the Dodgers and the Astros. So in the World Series here, which is a compelling matchup. So generally speaking, if you were to assess the way this postseason has gone, from where you sit as the commissioner, how do you feel?
Well, we feel great about our postseason. Obviously, we had a tremendous finish last year with the Cubs winning the World Series, and it was hard to figure out how we were going to follow on with that. But we were very fortunate. We had some great teams. I mean, the Cleveland story was an unbelievable story leading into the playoffs. It was great to get the Yankees back in the playoffs, and we couldn't be happier with the way that the postseason's performed on TV.
Let me just say quickly, the last year did not end that well as my Cleveland Indians lost. I don't care about the 108 years and all that, so cry me a river. I wanted my Indians to win. That said, I'm sorry, I just had to say that. So looking back on the season, as we look at some of the big picture things, you've talked about, pace of play on this show and many other shows as well. The average 9-inning game in the majors went up 4.5 minutes. And I know it's not so much the time. We've talked about that, but the pace the game is moving at. Where are you with that as far as being satisfied, unsatisfied, and where it may go in the future?
Well, we're not satisfied with where we are in terms of what went on in the regular season. I am pleased that we've had very constructive dialogue with the MLBPA. That dialogue's ongoing. I really do expect that we'll have a set of rule changes for next year that will be helpful for us. Number of topics that I've talked to you guys about in the past, sort of on the table. Exactly what ends up in the agreement, I'm not in a position to predict right now, but I do think we will have some change that will be helpful on that topic.
Was limitation on pitching changes part of that conversation? I mean, I remember we had that conversation with you one time on the show, and now I can't recall if that's something that was legitimately on the table. Is that part of the discussion?
That's one that is not part of the discussion. No. I think the way I would summarize the topics that are out there are really dead time topics. We're talking about things where it does not affect the way the game is played on the field. Obviously pitching changes could have a competitive impact, and we think we have enough that can be accomplished on the dead time front that we don't need to go there right now.
I would be curious to know, just conceptually, there's such a difference in the aura and the feel and clearly the significance of postseason games versus regular season games. Would there ever be a set of circumstances where you could see different rules in the postseason? I made the comment a couple of different times during these playoffs that the drama that is connected with these playoff games makes every part of every one of these pitching changes so exciting and dramatic, and the strategy of it is so fascinating that might not have the same feel over the course of 162. Could you ever foresee a circumstance where you had a different set of rules in the postseason versus the regular season?
Well, let me agree with part of your premise. I do think, and we try not to talk about pace of play in the postseason for the simple reason that, that extra mound visit, that extra pitching change, or the pitcher taking a little more time to deliver a pitch. We don't worry about that in the postseason because everything is so important, so dramatic. Having said that, while we see the postseason differently, I think it's important from an integrity perspective, and I think it will always be the case that we'll play the postseason under the same rules that play the regular season.
I would completely agree with that. I wouldn't touch the postseason. I think it's fantastic. I completely agree with you there. Again, the regular season, you had record home runs, record strikeouts. Seems to be the all-or-nothing league from that sense. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's a product of, people adopting particular strategies that they think are effective to win. It's a product of the way the game's being taught to young people. I suspect over time you will see the game adjust and we'll move back in the direction of the type of play that we've seen historically. There's always smart people figuring out new ways to win, and one of the great things about baseball is the game seems to have an endless capacity to self-adjust.
Mike and Mike, Rob Manfred is with us on his way to Los Angeles. Dodgers, Astros, Game 1 World Series tonight. Remember, every pitch is here on ESPN Radio and on the ESPN app. Our coverage tonight starts at 7 Eastern. Another topic that came up under the most unfortunate of circumstances was the issue of protective netting in the sport. And we know I've seen a couple of other teams, or a couple of teams have announced since the season ended they're going to go with more of that after the incident where the little girl got hit. From the perspective of the Office of Major League Baseball, where do you stand right now on protective netting?
Well, we are working with the clubs. I said after what was a horrible incident in Yankee Stadium that, we would redouble our efforts. We're working with the clubs individually. As you noted, a number of them have announced already additional netting, and we think that's a great thing. We're working with a number of other clubs to encourage them to move in that direction, and I think you'll see a lot of change on that topic before opening day next year.
That's something, because I never know, with obviously with league, with unions and all that, some things involves both. A situation like this, how can you just get involved and make the determination? Does it have to be each individual owner? There are a lot of questions coming out about that when that happened, about different teams wanting to do that. What would be a process?
Right. Well, we have some guidelines out there for the clubs right now. We issued new guidelines shortly after I became commissioner. I've been reluctant to mandate netting just for the simple reason that each stadium is very different, and it's hard to come up with a single rule that fits for everybody. But I think that it's certainly something that we will talk about again during this offseason in terms of making sure we moved forward on this issue adequately. But it is something that I could order.
I like.
All right, I like that.
You know what?
Too.
It's good to have that in your hip pocket that you could order that. I
like any
that.
phrase in which the last sentence is, it is something I could order.
Yeah.
Well, you find yourself to be more persuasive on the topic if you, in fact, have that in your back pocket.
I would agree with that.
It's a good thing.
All right, we appreciate your time this morning. The last question, we ask all our guests this, is who's going to win the World Series? How many games?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not in the prediction business generally, but I'll do it. So I'm going to stay away from it. There's no win in that predicting business for me. So I hope we have 7 games is my deepest hope.
That's what I was going to say. The big win is the 7th
exactly
game of the World Series. Commissioner, enjoy it. Travel safe today. And keep cool tonight. It's going to be hot out there. Thanks very much, as always.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
The best of Mike and Mike.
How many places are there left now that you read a magazine? I was just thinking about this the other day. Mike and Mike were presented by Progressive Insurance, our guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance line. There are some great pleasures in life that generations going forward will just never know. In my opinion, a cup of coffee and a newspaper in the morning, which was a staple of life, not just in this country, but I think pretty much everywhere in the world for hundreds of years, is basically over. I sit in that coffee shop on weekend mornings now, and you look around. Everyone used to have a newspaper, and now basically no one has.
I read the stories off the phone now,
or the iPad. Just about everybody does. Yeah. And even magazines, I loved magazines all through my life. I got tons of them, everything from Sports Illustrated to Rolling Stone to, any number of different things. I still get one magazine. I still have one magazine subscription. I get my Golf Digest once a month.
Of course you do.
And I love it.
Of course you do.
But we were talking about it earlier because Eric Bledsoe tweeted, "I don't want to be here." And he is an out of context or no context tweeter.
Yes, he is.
You used the right phrase.
No context of some of his tweets. These are some of his tweets between January and September. Patience. This one hurt. Wow. Thank God. I'm so tired. No context to him at all. So this was, I don't want to be here. And everybody assumed it meant he doesn't want to be with Phoenix, the team anymore. He said before the season he wanted to be traded. The season just started. They already fired their coach. Nobody thought it was because he didn't want to be at a hair salon.
Right. I mean, everyone, including the Suns themselves. We played you the sound a couple of minutes ago. Ryan McDonough, the general manager, said he told us that the reason he tweeted that is because he was at the hair salon with his girl. This is his words, Ryan McDonough's words, and he didn't want to be there. And Ryan McDonough said flat out, we didn't believe him. So he's gone now. He won't be with us anymore, which means that trading him just got a little bit harder.
Yes, it did.
Because everyone now knows that you have to trade him, whereas previously you just probably wanted to trade him. So I think that's a terrible job by them. And more significantly, I believe him. I believe, based on his history of out-of-context tweets, that's what exactly, of zero-context tweets, that's what he was tweeting. And I don't think it's worth just throwing him off the team as a result of it.
Again, he has a number, as I read, of no-context tweets. So it's very interesting if that's what he meant. I don't know if I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt if he knew it might cause this because it's right around before the coach got fired. I'm not giving him that much of the benefit of the doubt about that.
So you go to the salon with your wife. How long does it take? How long does it take?
It can now. So I sometimes don't stay there the entire time. I have because it can take a while. It's a great little breakfast place or lunch place that I can go to in between. But I'll sit there. Ricky's a good friend of ours who does her hair. You met him at Jake's wedding, so he's fun to talk to and hang out with. They have cookies and other goodies there at the salon. They do have some magazines. There are places. So I've read magazines there. There are 3 other places I read magazines.
Okay, let me hear.
Dentist.
Right.
There's still magazines available.
Right.
Doctor's office.
Got it.
And where I get my oil change. They have an incredible array of magazines. So I read.
Are they current?
Pretty current, yes. Yeah. So I read them there.
Frequently at the doctor's office, there's like a Reader's Digest from like 2013.
Yeah. That's the worst. The dentist is pretty good. They have newspaper and magazines. The doctor's office just has old magazines. But I'll say the place I got my oil change, newspaper and a bunch of great magazines. So that's where I go. That's where I still. And we're talking about free magazines, not like at the airport or you got to buy magazines.
Right.
Just where there are magazines available for you to read.
They still sell tons and tons of magazines at the airport.
Well, I get those because when we've taken trips together, I get my rag magazines.
So there's another place that you read magazines.
Yeah, but I buy them. I'm just talking about where you go and they're available to you to read without me having to purchase them.
Okay, fair enough.
Like a salon.
Let's then go back to Monday Night Football last night. I'm not sure exactly how we got waylaid from that. I take the responsibility for that.
You should.
With Carson Wentz playing as well as he is playing and the Eagles looking as good as they are looking, we had a hashtag Too Far Tuesday this morning saying someone's going to get their dream of an all-Pennsylvania Super Bowl. I would ask you the following question. Which of the 2 teams that play in Pennsylvania, in your opinion, are more likely to make the Super Bowl this year?
Boy, that's a really good question. That is a really good question. I would probably lean toward Philadelphia. I'm trying to think of the biggest competition they would have. Could come from the Cowboys in their own division. Do we think Minnesota can offer that up? The Saints?
The Rams?
The Seahawks?
So Seattle put it together and looked better than they've looked, more consistent than they've looked. I mean, they scored a lot of points this week against the Giants, most of it coming late.
They're down 17 or 10-3 in that game for a bit. Yeah. Or 7-3 or whatever it was.
7-3.
But, no, I think Philly, because I still
Me too, because I think that the top of the AFC is much stronger than the top of the
New England,
NFC.
right off the bat, New England and Kansas City, even though Pittsburgh beat Kansas City already, I still think at the end, and that's where all that matters at the end, is still really, really good competition.
And I think Houston is going to be a very tough out for anybody, and I think don't count out Oakland yet and
Bills.
See what they are.
The Bills, who knows?
Between Buffalo and Miami, who knows what those teams are? Are you buying a little bit of Tennessee? Are you buying a little bit of Saxonville? with Jacksonville. And I mean, if they get when their quarterback plays well, and again, it tends to happen against really bad teams. They got the running game. They've got a good defense. So there's a lot of good teams in the AFC, and there aren't nearly as many that we see that we like at this point in the NFC. So at this point, I think the Eagles right now look like the favorite. The Eagles right now look like the favorite, and a lot can change. This is 7 games, and they're going to play 9 more. But as of this moment, the Eagles look like the favorite to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl.
And you said Schefter reported, right, that they think that the injury to Jason Peters or everything left tackle may not be as bad as it looked. It looked bad. Again, it looked bad. At the O-lineman's nightmare, you never see it coming. You're just pass blocking or run blocking, and all of a sudden somebody rolls up on you, and you're on the ground. And you saw him holding his leg, pointing to it immediately. He was in a lot of pain. They brought the immobilizer out and the card out. A lot of times you can tell by the way a player reacts of what he thinks it may be. Boy, you saw everybody going around him, and just he's so well respected and got carted off. That would be amazing if it's not as serious as it looked, and he could actually play again this year. I still don't hold out hope at this point in watching that, but hey, I'm not a doctor.
Schefter tweeted, if there's some bit of encouraging news on Jason Peters, Eagles do not believe he tore his ACL per source. MRI this morning to see. So that's the news that he's getting out of there. We will do fill in the blank in a couple of minutes. Paul Finebaum will join us in a couple of minutes and much more. I want to go through a few more baseball tweets.
Okay.
Will Owens tweets, baseball needs to add teams to the playoffs. Teams with 90 and 100 wins missing the playoffs is crazy. And Will, I would completely agree. If that actually had happened, there was no team that won 90 games this year that didn't make the playoffs. I was just going
off the top of my head. I'm thinking, wait a minute, who's he talking about?
No one was even close.
Okay.
The best team that missed the playoffs this year, if memory serves, doing this off the top of my head, was Milwaukee. I think Milwaukee had the most wins. You have the standings there. Who had the most wins of any team that didn't make the playoffs? I think it was the Brewers.
Milwaukee had 86 wins.
I think that's it.
Angels had 80.
No one had more. Yeah. I mean, they were only like a very small handful of teams that were over 500.
And Tampa Bay had 80. So, there were a few teams with 80 and then one with 86. So, that's not a true statement.
Look, I mean, if there's one thing that we did see this has been a magnificent postseason. I don't know what the television ratings are going to be for the World Series. They may be down a tick compared to last year just because you had two separate things working for you last year. You had the Cubs, which was a story the likes of which you don't have now and you're not likely to have for another century. And you also had an incredibly competitive and compelling series that went 7 games. If this one is an incredibly competitive and compelling series that goes 7 games, they'll have very good television ratings. It won't be what last year's was.
No.
But this year you had the Cubs in the Final Four and you had the Yankees in the Final Four. So the ratings right now are in a good place. So anytime I sit here and I talk about little things, like I'm always constantly trying to tweak and adjust everything. I don't like the narrative. I don't subscribe to the narrative that baseball is in any trouble at all. I don't think they are. But you can always make anything better.
You can, but I'm not always in favor of tweaking things when I see a couple of years of something because a lot of it evens out and goes the other way.
If there's one thing I think baseball needs to be most concerned about going forward, everyone has like their things that keeps them awake at night. The one thing they have to be the most concerned about going forward is the amount of dead time in a sport as our society becomes decreasingly willing to sit through anything.
Yeah.
I mean, anything. We can't watch a football game anymore.
I know.
The red zone has ruined football for us. It is more difficult to watch the standalone games on Thursdays, Sundays, and Mondays because we're so accustomed to the second it goes to a commercial, those of us who watch Red Zone, which at this point I feel like is everyone I know.
Yeah.
You're just accustomed to what we're going to give me. Here's someone's on the 20, and here's an interception, and here's a kick just got blocked.
I'm with you, but we're talking about the only game without a clock, trying to clock some things.
No, but that is its beauty. No, that should not change. You can't take the baseball out of baseball.
But you're
anymore.
trying to clock some things. If their biggest thing is the time in between plays, you want to speed that up. So you're trying to clock something.
That's not the part of not having a clock that is the beauty of baseball. The beauty of baseball not having a clock is that time is never going to run out. You got to get 27
You're missing my point. I'm saying
in
a game where there's no clock for anything, you are trying to clock something.
Right.
Which is a change for that sport.
Right. And
they're trying to do it with the pitches,
correct.
with the play, with the pitch clock. Again, I was in the Dunkin' Donuts Stadium here in a minor league, and they got a clock running.
Right.
So and sometimes they adhere to it. Sometimes they don't.
Right, but I think everyone, if you were to have a little bit more of that and enforce staying in the batter's box and all that kind of stuff a little more than they used to, I think everyone will get used to that really fast. All the players who are complaining about that would get used to it.
Players do adapt
really fast. So I don't think that would be the end of the world. And then I do believe that the seemingly never-ending flow of relief pitchers is a small problem for baseball. Because while it is incredibly compelling in the postseason, remarkable to watch the Yankees bringing all these guys out of the pen and these other teams that do, Kansas City won a World Series 2 years ago by doing that. On a Tuesday night in August, it's kind of tough to sit through.
I agree.
It just is.
I know. I agree with that. But tell that manager that, is trying to win.
That's why you got to change for this. Listen.
Oh, yeah, I know we're
not
rules. Yeah.
That's why I am totally in favor of changing all of the. You know this. I was yelling and screaming about this just last week. Stop incentivizing losing. We talked to Adam Silver last week about this and the changes they're making in the interest of trying to eliminate tanking. There was just an article I was reading this morning. Someone remind me who was talking about it. It was an executive who was saying that in Golden State, they tanked to get Klay Thompson, who's now an executive somewhere else. I forget where it was. And he openly acknowledged that they made moves. They sat Steph Curry for the rest of a season, and they made a trade for a guy they knew wouldn't play for them the rest of the year. It turned out to be Andrew Bogut, who wound up being a contributor for them as time went forward. But they did it in order to solidify their draft position because they needed to be in the top 7 because they had a top 7 protected draft pick or something like that. The point of the story is that they're acknowledging that they were purposely losing. That's the first thing I would change. If you made me the president of the world and I could change everything in sports, the first thing I would change is I would make every rule change I could that meant that losing would never be better than winning.
Yeah.
There would never be a circumstance in which losing is better than winning. You have less of that in baseball than anywhere else.
Yeah,
that's a non-issue in baseball.
And basketball, I believe they think they tried, but I don't think they accomplished it at all by giving the same percentage of the first, second, and third pick. I actually think it works in reverse, in my opinion, as far as tanking. But, they're let's see if they come up with something even better down the road. We'll have to wait and see.
And then Christopher tweets, Major League Baseball's pace of play is much improved, but rules and pace need to be kept up in postseason with national stage. Again, that's one I actually disagree with.
Completely disagree with that.
Some might say this is when your sport is on its biggest stage. You want it to be at its best. I think it is. I think that the gripping drama of all of those decisions, which have always been the beauty of the sport, are magnificent with everything in the world riding on every one of them. And for a lot of casual fans may feel tedious over the course of 162 games.
I get that, but I just think of the players and the team in that game 37, which could be the one that gets them over the hump, quite honestly, when you get to 162. But, again, we'll see. I understand they want to improve the rate of play, so I don't know the answer to it. Little changes. It's not going to be big changes. It's going to be little changes. That could be one. I could easily see that being one down the road is pitchers in the same inning. How many allow?
Limit a number of within an inning pitching changes.
Because what you want to do is you want to make a change that's subtle that no one maybe really notices,
Right. No, if you just changed that and you didn't tell the world you had changed it.
Didn't tell anybody.
I mean, people would notice because the hardcore fans of the team would be like, get him out of there.
Yeah,
Why
they
are you
would. Why are you not? And then you would. But we're not talking about hardcore fans here.
Right. Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance, our guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. So you have no problem with 2.5 minutes left in a blowout game with Jordan Bell of the Warriors off a defensive play. He actually blocks a shot and he runs out in transition. 2.5 minutes last night. Throwing the ball up off the backboard and slam dunking it
Absolutely
in a blowout game.
Pro game, man. Deal with it.
After it was over, Steve Kerr apologized to Rick Carlisle.
And he had no need to apologize. And by the way, Carlisle wanted nothing to do with it. Walked right by him. Get over it. You just got blown out tough. Who cares if he slammed? That's what you're worrying about? That's what always amazes me. You got blown out by 25, or it was 25. I don't know what the final score ended up. But you're losing by 25 with 2 minutes to go. And that's what you're going to complain about? That's going to be an issue? That's what you're going to be salty about? That you don't want to, hear? A, I wouldn't apologize. But B, acting salty like you're not going to hear the apology. Seriously? That's the least. You get a chance to dunk. Wait a minute. Are we entertaining fans or not?
Are we
supposed to entertain fans? You think what's more entertaining? A layup, dribbling it out, and not scoring at all because you're up 25, or an off the backboard slam?
Well,
what do? We want to entertain them or not? Well, it's a great chance to entertain them. Who's it hurting? It's hurting. Let me tell you who it's hurting. Nobody. Get over it. Get over it. No apology necessary. No apology needed. Slam it away, my friend.
Code of conduct. Let me ask you a question. In an NFL game, if you could just run out the clock and win the game by taking a couple of knees and you throw a touchdown pass, you wouldn't have a problem with that? Let's say a team gets a first down. They're winning by whatever it is, and they get a first down now, and they could just take 3 knees and the clock is going to run out and they're going to win.
Way different than a slam. For a guy that makes a defensive play who plays 7 minutes a game, he has the ball tapped to him in an open lane to the basket. What should he have done? Not scored, just laid it in. If you want to compare a 25-point game with 2 minutes to go and a team throwing a bomb to a dunk off the glass, I'm going to disagree with you and say there's no comparison to one play like that as opposed to a bomb in a football game, to a long pass in a football game.
That's probably fair. You know, as I'm watching the highlight more and more, I just saw this on Twitter last night. I wasn't watching the game when it happened. It was very late last night. But I'm seeing the expression on Kevin Durant's face.
Yeah.
And Durant, again, the teammate of the guy doing the dunking, and Jordan Bell. I think if I'm reading Durant's expression right, I think he's saying, man, he shouldn't have done that. Like that was not cool. Like, you know, like baseball has a bunch of they're typing up he's impressed. I don't think so. You think Kevin Durant is impressed by a guy throwing the ball to himself off the backboard? You think it's the first time he's ever seen that?
I don't know.
He's so impressed.
I don't think Jordan Bell was doing it to impress Kevin Durant.
No, that's what I'm saying.
I don't think going up he's doing it because he could. He was doing it because he had the open lane to do it.
Yeah.
Thought we were entertaining. Are we not entertaining? Are you not entertained?
I was entertained.
Okay, I was entertained. I would much rather see that than a layup or dribble it back out, and not score. So if this is what we're going to complain about, seriously, you got more issues. You're getting blown out by 25. Worry more about that than, did you see what he did with 2 minutes ago? Wah.
Let's hear from you. If you'd like to let us know, at us on this one. I'd like to hear if anyone had a problem with it. Mike, let's fill in the blank quickly here, Golic. It's brought to you by Mahindra Tractors and Utility Vehicles. Mahindra USA, the world's #1 selling tractor. Fill in the blank. Here we go. Dwayne Wade opting for a bench role in Cleveland right now is blank.
Selfless? Would you do that? Does he feel he can be better for the team or he can score more points? Because he's averaging, 5 points now as a starter, and if he's coming off the bench, he thinks leading that and playing more, maybe he could, if he plays or would lead that, would be able to score more points. Do we think it was completely for the betterment of the team?
The word I was going to use was inevitable. It just sort of felt like that was where this thing is going to wind up anyway, so why not do it now and get comfortable in the role? Here's what I'll be curious about. When we get to late April and May and June, I don't care who's playing at the beginning of the game. Will Dwayne Wade be playing at the end?
Right, exactly.
Will he be on the floor when they're in the last few possessions of close games? I forget even the last 6 minutes of close games. Is he on the floor?
Well,
with the group they have?
We got to see the season.
That's
how
what
it
I
plays
mean.
out.
But
I don't know.
That's the interesting one.
I'm with you, yeah.
Whether he started the game or not. Because that's where I think he'll want to be on the floor. I don't think – I think coming off the bench, while I get the status of it, I think that if he's on the floor – late in these close games, that will be a very interesting thing. Next, of the following teams, Cowboys, Falcons, Raiders, and Jets, the most surprising 3-win team in the NFL is blank.
The Jets. If you'd have told me 7 games in, they'd have 3 wins already, and I didn't think they'd go 0-16. I thought maybe they'd win 3 games for the year, 2, 3, 4 games for the year, but 3 games at this point, I would say that would be the most surprising.
I'm pretty surprised the Falcons only have 3 wins. Now, if you've watched them play, you realize they could easily have only had 1.
Yep.
But I'll agree with you. Did I think the Jets would win 3 games the whole year? Maybe not. But if you had said before the season started, one of these teams is going to have 3 wins at this moment in the year, I think I would have disputed Atlanta more than I would have disputed any of the others. Next, the team outside of Alabama that you would bet an amount of money that mattered to you on to make the college football playoff is blank.
It's a great question before the Ohio State-Penn State matchup.
Mm-hmm. Outside of Alabama.
I may still lean to Clemson. There's even though could the ACC be left out, I don't think they lose again. I think they win the ACC championship. Then it's a matter of how many one-loss teams are there that they're battling against for that as a conference champ. And then throw Notre Dame in there, not in a conference, but could finish up 11-1. And then you start comparing schedules, and Notre Dame's schedule is very difficult. But if you tell me to give you a team, I'd probably say Clemson.
Me too. I think they're the best of the ones that haven't gotten that have one loss, and I think that they will wind up getting in. Next, Eric Bledsoe's explanation for his, quote, "I don't want to be here" tweet was
awesome. Listen, if he was telling the truth, then what a great one. And if he was lying, at least he didn't say I was hacked. At least if he was lying, boy, what a great one to come up with. What a great one. Did you mean you didn't want to be with us? No, I was at a salon, and I didn't want to be there anymore.
Candidly, my answer to that question, or my filling in the blank, would be honest. I believe it's true. I do believe it's true. He has ample opportunity to say he doesn't want to be in Phoenix anywhere, anytime, any place. He didn't need to do it cryptically like that. Yeah. I believe he was at the salon reading some old magazine. They probably had a magazine sitting there from like 2014. It's got the little part where someone's address was originally on it, ripped off in that little corner. Someone's already done the crossword puzzle in it. It's brutal sitting there with that magazine. And he just, you know what? I don't want to be here.
I don't want to be here.
Just decided to tweet that.
And he is a no-context tweeter.
They threw him off the team as a result of it. So
don't play for us anymore, and you'll still get your paycheck.
They're done with that.
2nd and 16. Wentz is back again. Wentz looking, still looking. He is going deep down the far side, and it is caught. And into the touchdown goes Mac Hollins, got loose on the far side, and Wentz threw it 64 yards.
WIP, the play-by-play, the Philadelphia Eagles continue to fly. Eagles fly 34-24 at home over Washington last night. They sweep that season series. Carson Wentz throws 4 touchdowns. He has a league-best 17 on the year, so he's an MVP candidate, and the Eagles are 6-1. NBA performance of the night, Giannis Antetokounmpo, 32 points, 14 rebounds, 6 assists for the Greek Freak as Milwaukee beat the Hornets 103-94. And, of course, Astros and Dodgers play Game 1 of the World Series tonight. We had the commissioner of baseball on about an hour ago. Keuchel and Kershaw, the pitching matchup. Coverage starts 7 Eastern on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. SportsCenter with Mike and Mike, brought to you by Discover.
If you're a Discover credit card member, there's an important action you can take right now. You can activate Discover's free Social Security alerts online. They're going to alert you if your Social Security number is found on any one of thousands of risky websites. Learn more at discover.com/free alerts. Limitations do apply.
Every tweet that has been handed to me by Travis over there agrees with you on the Jordan Bell dunk. So that suggests to me that either no one agreed with me or he's just trying to take your side in this thing. I'm not sure which way the Bickler is going on this, but he hands me a sheet of 5 tweets. Every single one of them are on that side. J.C. Pacheco, no problem with the dunk. If you don't like it, stop them from doing it. Nick, my problem was he didn't tomahawk it. Money Mike, Golic is right. They're losing by 25, and they're crying about losing by 27. Dan, 100% agree with Golic. Entertain me. At Take That tweets, Golic is so right. Rick Carlisle is a baby. So every single tweet that was handed to me on this piece of paper agrees with
I'm
you.
just amazed you're getting blown out, and that's what fans or players or coach or somebody, and I don't know what the player said.
I'm not code of conduct.
I'm not going to say the players for Dallas sat there and complained. I didn't hear what they said. I'm saying if anybody did complain about it, you got a lot more to worry about than if the guy wants to off the backboard slam it and entertain a few people and get something out of his 7 minutes on the court that he gets. So I have no problem with it.
Let's talk some college football now. We all know Paul Finebaum from the SEC Network, the Paul Finebaum Show. You hear him every afternoon, coast to coast here on ESPN Radio, and he joins us once a week or anytime we can grab him. Good morning, Paul Finebaum. How are you today, sir?
Good morning, everybody.
We had a very interesting weekend in college football, and unfortunately, for me as a fan, it was disappointing. I was really looking forward with the clicker to the 2 games, the big primetime games on Saturday night, which both turned into one-sided blowouts. So Penn State and Notre Dame with those huge wins. So give us a little perspective from where you sit on the performances of those 2 teams and what you think those 2 one-sided wins mean to the big picture of college football where we sit right now.
Yeah, I think, Greeny, in relation to Penn State, it was an incredible win, and I think it obviously finished off Michigan and Jim Harbaugh for this season, but it sets up what's obvious this week, maybe the biggest game of the year in college football. And the winner of this game Saturday afternoon in Columbus really has an inside track to get a spot in the playoff. Now, I know Penn State fans are going to say, what if we lose? Well, I think it is bad news if Penn State loses, as well as everything has gone. Conversely, I think if Penn State wins and Barkley has a really big game, he can really put a grip or his arms around the Heisman Trophy. I think he has been that dominant and that impressive.
Or Josh Adams from Notre Dame. I'm starting to jump on his bandwagon, Paul. He's been having a monster year. The Notre Dame beats USC. Let me ask it in this way. People think I'm just going to ask about Notre Dame all the time.
I'm not talking about Notre Dame.
Yeah, because you're forced to have to say they're for real, aren't you? Go ahead, just admit it.
Can I ask for what? I know everyone wants to be on camera, but could I indulge you guys to? Because I feel like I owe Golic a man-to-man conversation, but I need to go off camera here for about 10 seconds, if you could oblige. Okay.
Yeah, we'll vamp.
I'll be right back.
This is pretty good. I'm
I
very
do
curious
like
to
this
see
a
what
lot.
it is he does.
I am as well.
Leave the shot up. I mean, let's see. I'll do the play-by-play for radio.
Off here.
Well, he's going off. He's obviously going to get something.
Yes,
I want
he
to
is.
see the prop. Let's see him when he returns.
Oh!
Paul Finebaum is wearing a Notre Dame helmet.
Yes.
For those of you listening on ESPN
That's what I'm
Radio.
talking about. Go ahead.
Listen,
regale us with stories of Notre Dame.
You know, when you're wrong, okay? And, I try to be true, and it's pretty obvious I could not have been more wrong about Brian Kelly and Notre Dame. So I feel like in deference to one of my favorite Notre Dame families, the Golics, I've gotten to know you, I've gotten to know your son, I've heard from your mom, which isn't a pleasant experience sometimes when you're being attacked by her. I just feel like I'm all in. I know the Notre Dame family doesn't want any part of me, but I'm here to offer whatever condolences to myself, and I'm asking for absolution. Is that possible?
Yes, it is. Paul, we love you. Deep down, we really do love you. And along the lines of Notre Dame and Ohio State and Clemson and Oklahoma and any other one-loss team you want to put in there, which one-loss team do you think has the best shot going forward?
Well, I heard what you said a minute ago. I think Clemson is really in good shape. I mean, if they run the table, I'm not sure how they can be denied. But I will say this, Mike, the most interesting scenario, I do think, is what happens if Georgia loses an epic game to Alabama in the SEC championship game and Notre Dame runs through, which I think will be difficult but possible. Then do you choose Notre Dame over Georgia, which may have played a better schedule overall, except one thing about Georgia, and it's really difficult to make sense wearing a football helmet for the first time in my life, winning, they would have a win at Auburn and obviously a very quality loss to Alabama at the end.
Paul, while I'm asking this question, if you want to take the helmet off, you can take the helmet off.
I don't know how to take it off, so I'm leaving it on.
Let me throw another team in there, and they would have to beat my Notre Dame team to ask this question. A team that's sitting at number 14 right now that in 2 weeks could be in a lot different position. North Carolina State. They play Notre Dame this week and Clemson next week. If they were to win those two games, or I guess let me ask you this: do you think they're capable of that? And then do we put them right in this conversation?
Yeah, no, I think you have to because they lost early. They lost in the first game of the year.
Right.
It's not a great loss unless South Carolina gets on a roll and starts knocking teams off, and they will play Florida and they will have Clemson, which would be interesting. But I think they would have a big hill to climb, and it also would depend on who they get in the ACC championship game.
Mike and Mike, Paul Finebaum is with us again. For those of you listening on radio, you're missing a treat here. He's wearing a Notre Dame helmet. He's got the grill in the front. I mean, everything about it is just.
Go, I don't know how you wear this thing for 4 hours. I'm already nauseous after 3 minutes.
We should have gotten them. Remember the old face masks that the punters would wear that had the
one bar
across the front? I think somehow I think that would have worked out well. But this is a delight. Let me ask you this. Everyone keeps talking about what if Georgia loses a close game to Alabama in the SEC championship game, and I get why everyone would ask that.
Right.
What if Alabama loses a close game to Georgia in the SEC championship? They've been in all three of these things. Now, they don't have the kind of great win on their schedule that everyone get excited about, but they have the pedigree. If they lost a close game, would they get left out of this thing?
I don't think so, although, listen, I know where the conversation is going, and suddenly, Greeny, that win against Florida State is garbage. That was the biggest preseason game we've ever had, a 1-3 matchup, but that's what happens. People forget. I like to look at it, what was that team like on the day you played them in Florida?
The best best of Mike and Mike.
Okay, I got news here as Louis Riddick joins us in our studio, our front office insider extraordinaire, and so much more. Hello, Louis.
Hey, how you doing?
Good to see you as always. We'll talk plenty about the Eagles and their performance, but I'm very intrigued by the Martavis Bryant situation.
Yeah.
And he just gave an interview within the last half hour. She's been posting quotes to our Josina Anderson.
Mm-hmm.
So have you seen this yet?
No.
I'm just seeing it for the first time. Let me read these to you guys.
All right.
This is Martavis Bryant, who, again, just quickly on the background, he was suspended for an entire year for repeated violations of the marijuana policy. He was a fourth-round pick, so he's making $615,000 this year. And he is a decreasingly significant part of their offense. Mm-hmm. They have this new kid they really like, Juju Smith-Schuster, who's really good and talented. And obviously they have Antonio Brown and they have Le'Veon Bell.
Yep.
So Martavis is making it clear he wants out of there. So these are direct quotes, Martavis Bryant to Josina Anderson. Quote, if they don't try to include me more and continue to do the same thing, I want out, period. I just want to be happy. I would like for it to be here, but if not, then oh well, just got to move on. I'm not being selfish. It's just I want to help contribute, and I want to be the best player that I can be. By the end of, meaning on the trade deadline, by the end of whenever the trade deadline is, if things don't get better, then I've got to go. If they refuse to trade me, then so be it. I'm not going to re-sign. I'll just play next year out. I'm not tripping. These are direct quotes from Martavis Bryant to Josina. So you've got a smile on your face I can't quite identify, Louis Riddick. What does it mean?
The lack of awareness by some people in terms of understanding where you're at in your career, what your reputation has been, and where you still have to go is just it just continues to baffle me that players like this sometimes think that because they say they're not being selfish, but the fact that you're actually doing an interview like this at this point in time, given, again, where you're at in your career, what you just came from, and how this team has really tried to, from everything that I know, do everything they can to try and get you to where you need to be, and then this is really how you handle a situation where you just don't like how you're, one, being outplayed, two, how you're being utilized. It's just baffling to me that you would go this route. It just is, and that's why I left, because this is one of those things that you can sit here and you can talk around in circles all you want, but there's really only one way to handle this kind of thing. This really is to keep your mouth shut and keep working, and hopefully what winds up happening is your coach winds up kind of getting you back into the fold. You start producing again, and if it so happens that Pittsburgh isn't the place for you, then other teams look at you as someone who's not a malcontent and not a big mouth and not a guy who's not aware of where you just came from and the mistakes you've made in the past. Because right now, I promise you, there's no GMs who are sitting there going, yeah, you know what? Let's call Pittsburgh and see if we can get Martavis out of there because, he's the exact kind of guy we want to bring into our culture. No one's doing that right now. As a matter of fact, people are doing just what I did when you were just looking at me. They're going, okay.
It's amazing to me. I mean, it is selfish. You sit there, as soon as you say, I'm not trying to be selfish, it's exactly what you're doing. You're putting the spotlight on you. For a guy that all his problems he needs to look in the mirror for, when he said, I came back, I did it all myself, I got no support, that's fine, dude. And if you're back, that's great. If you kicked your problems, but they were yours. You did that.
Sure.
Nobody else. You put yourself in the position you're in. So now on the field, you have a chance to put yourself in a position where we're in. You know the ball's going to Antonio Brown. You know the ball's going to Le'Veon Bell. They like Juju Smith-Schuster a lot in what he's doing. The place to handle this, and I don't know if he's done this, but you know me, Greeny, and public talking like this. I hope he's had the conversation with Mike Tomlin. I hope he's done it behind closed doors to say, you know what, I'd love to be a bigger part of this offense. How can that happen? And if not, then to your point, keep your mouth shut. Contribute as best you can, and then if you get a chance, you're 25 years old, a chance to go somewhere else, you're not going to go there with somebody rolling their eyes at you saying, well, this is a guy that got himself suspended for a year, and this is a guy that wouldn't keep his mouth shut about not wanting to be somewhere because he's not getting targeted enough. It's one thing when Antonio Brown does the selfish act of why not
flips
me?
over a Gatorade. That's what I was going to say. Is somehow when Antonio Brown is flipping over Gatorade buckets on the sideline, that's okay. But
no, it's not okay. He got criticized for it. He got criticized.
But the next
loudly.
week, they threw every single pass.
And what's the difference? What's the difference? What do we always say? Talent, man, gives you the leash.
Right.
He's got the talent. That's the way it's good. You got to know where you are on the pecking order, and there is a pecking order, and there is a way to deal with things, especially if you will put yourself in a position where you missed an entire year for your own fault. And the only things you did, this is not the way to get yourself in a good position if you're going to be on another team at some point.
When you can't affect your on-the-field value by getting on the field and showing people that you're good, well, then you for darn sure should not be sitting there trying to decrease your off-the-field value in terms of character when people are sitting there going, well, let's just see how he handles this. Because, I mean, look, scouts and GMs, I mean, they're hypersensitive about this stuff. They don't want guys who are giving interviews who are talking about, hey, well, you know what, I'm not tripping if this doesn't. They don't want that. They just don't. Only if you're good enough. Then they'll put up with all kinds of stuff, and we know that. But you're not good enough, Marte. You just don't have enough of a resume right now, and you have too many things working against you. Just be quiet. If you want to get out of there, maybe they may go ahead and make your wishes come true. But now you're just killing your value by doing it.
And by the way, you're the third most targeted guy in the team behind Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell. Then you're next. The last 3 games you were that was the first. That was the first day. The last 3 games,
they never throw the ball anymore.
It was 8 3 games ago, then 3, and then 2. He's been targeted 8 times twice this year, 6 another.
There's always something else behind it. That kind of drop off like that. There's always something that's going on that we don't know.
Right.
And again, when you don't know, people start filling in the voids as far as what might be going on here, and you're not helping yourself doing things like this. You're just
Someone tweeted us, just for the sake of going through the exercise, someone tweeted us yesterday, the Bears have a young quarterback they're trying to develop at Mitchell Trubisky. They won a game this week despite the fact that they only completed 4 passes. And at least part of the reason for that is that they have no receivers. All their receivers are hurt. Would they make a phone call over there to the Steelers and say, hey, here's a 5th-round pick or something like that? Can we have Martavis Bryant?
Could they? Yeah. Are they going to want to give up anything of value for a player that now is kind of like popping off at the mouth and who has the history that he has? I don't know. I doubt it.
He'd be the best.
I doubt it. But you know what? But yeah, it's possible. Look, because we know this. We've just already said it. When you're in desperate times, you'll do things like this because the kid is a wonderful talent. There's no question about that. Look, all offseason, notwithstanding the things that are going on right now, all offseason, people are falling all over themselves about the kind of talent this kid has, and it's undeniable. But see, these are the kind of things when you have – Chicago right now is developing some kind of chemistry. They're not that talented, but they're developing something that's allowing them to win football games. Do you want to introduce this kind of thing to your locker room? Would this be good really for Mitch Trubisky? Is it really the kind of thing that you want? Again, this could be the perfect destination where maybe you could find yourself playing for the Chicago Bears, but you're hurting yourself by talking.
That's exactly
You're hurting yourself. If you want to get to a place like this, just let them do their thing. That's right. Maybe you'll get there.
Yep, that's exactly right.
It's. I'm not suggesting it isn't a bad situation. I totally understand that, and I understand his history. Very recent history makes him probably the last person in the world who should be doing this.
Right.
That said, I kind of understand a guy who is as talented as he obviously is. I mean, there have been games, you go back over the course of before he got suspended, there were times when you wondered, are they the best 1-2 punch at receiver in the whole league?
Exactly there's no question that he's talented. But if you are trying to formulate an exit strategy because you want out and you truly do want out, this probably isn't the one.
What Lewis said is absolutely right. There's a reason you're seeing the numbers go down like that. There's a reason that we don't know about that's going on there. If that guy's that talented, you'd want to get him the ball. But there's a reason he's not getting the ball.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that always go into it. And Juju's rise as far as being a dependable player, a dependable, consistent player, obviously has a lot to do with it.
All right, Mike and Mike, Louis Riddick is here with the Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. Jay Cutler has a couple of ribs. He is unlikely to be healthy enough to play. They play Thursday against the Ravens. He's not going to play. Let me ask you this. Do you believe that if he was healthy after the performance Matt Moore put on in the second half against the Jets this weekend, Cutler would still be their starter?
Yeah, I think he would. Because I think once you give a guy the money that you give him to bring him off the street, when you already knew that you had Matt Moore there in the first place, something led you to believe that Matt Moore wasn't good enough. That's why you brought him there. So you're not going to pull the plug like that. Look, coaches have egos. Coaches don't want to be wrong. Coaches don't want to be called out on Mike and Mike for saying, hey, look, well, now you made a coaching change and you already had that guy in-house. Why did you sign Cutler in the first place? They don't want to face that kind of stuff. Although, Ryan Clark said this was the best move that Miami has ever made, by default in the history of their organization.
Listen,
I can't
prove this.
But, hey, I will say this. Matt Moore, he's been one of my favorite backups for years. When I was back in scouting, when I was with Philadelphia, I thought we should have signed him in 2011 coming out of the lockout. I thought this guy is perfect. He may not be able to sustain it if you started him for 16 games, kind of Ryan Fitzpatrick-like, although he's not the turnover machine that Fitzpatrick is. But he's perfect in that role. And that's why when you see him get a chance like this and he performs, it's not shocking.
So what does he have to do? Say he gets 3 starts. What in your mind does he have to do where Cutler's back, he's healthy, and Adam Gase says, there are guys?
You know what? The number one thing, Golic, is always this for backups. Don't lose it. Don't turn it over. Now let's work from there. Let's just start from where you're not losing games for us by turning the ball over, putting us in bad play calls, bad situations, making making bad audibles, and just get the ball to the playmakers. I know it sounds simple, but I'm telling you, that's what backups are asked to do when they get in the game. Don't lose it. You don't have to win it. Just don't lose it. Now, if you can win it, that's gravy for us. That's what he has to do.
The one thing I'll say is, if he continues to play the way he played this past weekend, they're going to have a tough time taking him off the field for Cutler.
No question.
They've had one of the worst. I mean, they'd won 3 games, but they had one of the worst offenses in the league.
Many a backup come in during a game, do well, and then all of a sudden they get a number of games, and it doesn't work out that way. There's a reason there's a backup. So let's see. Here's the thing. We don't have to guess. This is going to play out. He's going to get a few opportunities to see where it goes.
Yeah, and if not, then Jay Cutler will come back and continue cutlering the Dolphins right out of the